Ladies and gentlemen, the Bridges and Tunnels Committee. Are there any public speakers? Murray Bowden.
Morning. Can I talk about that special day today? Tomorrow, Chuck? Tomorrow? It's your birthday. This committee, the Bridges and Tunnels staff, has been extraordinary. They painted one line on the Henry Hudson Bridge correctly from white to yellow. And that became the wedge that began the conversations all over. And I was at the Thruway last Monday, and that was part of the conversation. But it extended to the governor's signs, 500-odd signs on the Thruway, being challenged by the feds. Incorrectly, by the way. Because the feds have all these little signs that say, this road's sponsored by so-and-so and so-and-so, and that's okay. So they've approved the fact that you have that kind of sign out there. So the discussion was only the size of the sign and whether or not the feds could draw their rules up selectively for their purposes and not ours. I believe the governor's signs were correct. I believe in economic development for New York State. It's not promoting a private industry, which they have. At this exit, you have so-and-so and so private industries. That's okay. And the size of the sign is the same. The governor has promoted the economic viability of this state correctly. I talk about that at this time because the one line that Bridges and Tunnels correctly painted, and it will be duplicated throughout New York State eventually. New York State DOT is having a problem with it, but the Thruway is not having a problem with it. And the Port Authority is trying to figure out what to do with it next. You're moving forward, and the federal manual that a lot of this comes from is outdated. And they know it's outdated. And they don't know how to change it. Your department is excellent, Polly. They're following this, what I'm doing, very closely and adapting it where they can quickly. The other thing is the guide signs on the top. They were put there 50 years ago and they're in the wrong place, and it changed that. This is all part of the process that was started right here, that was started with one line. And the repercussions have been widespread, and the leadership, the people that work in this particular agency, it's been extraordinary. And it's been a pleasure to work with them. And I want, because I can't thank everybody individually, because I can't remember everybody's name at my age. It's getting harder. And by the way, Mitch, you were correct this morning. When you let me finish that, you changed the dialogue. I will be speaking, you'll be at the Finance Committee. I was speaking about it there because somebody came up to me when I was registering for this and spoke about the fact that because of a delay in the MTA, they got here too late to speak at Long Island, at the transit. So that has to be addressed too. So we're moving forward. Mitch was correct. You were correct. Polly's department's correct. All of these little things are building as to change and moving forward in a way that most other agencies are not. So you need to be aware of that. Thank you all.
Am I allowed to just offer a note of encouragement here, Murray? You are right that the MUTCD is in need of upgrading, and it is going to be, and we have volunteered to be part of that process, so hopefully we can continue to make it part of something more 21st century.
What you just did is extraordinary. This is done at New Jersey Transit when someone speaks, and Bruce Mizell, who's now kind of running the place, has a question. He asks somebody, and it gets solved right away. Information just went out much faster than it could have anywhere else. And that's almost the first time that's happened here. And that's part of the transition of moving into interaction. The new president's tweets. I don't tweet, I don't Facebook. But this is the way younger people communicate today. And the fact that there needs to be a dialogue, a quick dialogue, not extended, but a quick one. And it's moving in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Committee work plan, any changes?
No changes to the work plan, and following that is the B&T committee charter, and there are also no changes to the charter. The entire charter is in the committee book beginning on page 19.
Can we then move on to the report on operations?
Good afternoon. The report on operations begins on page 23. Traffic was higher in September with 26.0 million crossings as compared with 25.2 million crossings in September of 2015. This represents a 3.4% increase. Average gas prices were $2.23 per gallon, 21 cents less than the same period last year. Rainfall amounts of 2.5 inches were identical to rainfall in September of 2015. Easy Pass volume increased by 4.4% in September of 2016 as compared to September of 2015, while crossings using cash and other payment methods declined 2.8% for the month. Passenger car travel was up 3.6%, and other vehicle travel increased by 0.4% from September of 2015. I would like to point out that the New York City Marathon was held on Sunday, November 6th, with approximately 52,000 participants crossing the start point at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. There were no significant incidents to report, and I'd like to commend our employees for the pre-race preparation they performed and their timely completion of roadway cleanup to allow for on-time reopening. This ends the report on operations.
Permit me to reveal my continuing ignorance, but what is the relevance of the amount of rainfall?
Traffic.
The more rainfall, the less traffic, or the other way around?
I think the more rainfall, the less traffic.
And also more slippery, and more accidents, I assume.
Well, believe it or not, sometimes not, because it slows the traffic down.
Okay. Any questions on the operations report? Safety.
Okay, before Pashko goes through the safety, I just want to, he'll go through the report. Pat will go through the customer environment survey, and then Jim and I will walk you through the handout we put in front of you on the customer safety data. So, Pashko.
The report on safety for the month of September is illustrated on page 37, in which we continue to highlight our leading and lagging indicators shown on the bottom and top tables. The report includes 12-month rolling averages and highlights the following performance indicators: customer collisions with injuries, employee accident reports, lost time injuries, and lastly, contractor lost time injuries. The customer collision rate for this 12-month reporting period increased from 5.75 to 7.06. And the rate for injury collisions increased from 0.94 to 1.01 injury collisions per million crossings. During the same reporting period, the total number of reported employee accidents decreased by 5 reported accidents, from 263 to 258 total cases. And the rate for the lost time injuries increased from 5.2 to 6.7. Finally, the contractor lost time injury rate dropped from 2.94 to 1.76. Which represents a decrease of 40.1%. In terms of our leading indicators shown in the bottom table, we continue to meet our set goals. Unless there are questions or comments, this concludes my report on safety.
So I appreciate you, we're going to go through the customer side. I do want to ask on the employee side, is there a causal relationship, or is it coincidental that we've seen employee lost time injury rates per worker hours going up 30%, and we've seen what effectively is a 66% drop in the number of workforce development, I take this, I guess these are meetings, or number of participants. So that's dropped considerably, meaning that's the training on safety, and the employee rate has commensurately increased. Is there a relationship?
No, the employee, the training that we highlight here includes a significant number that we've trained that is one time only. So for example, for Tim's training, it's one time, and we've done a number of those trainings last year. So unless it's a new employee that comes on board, we wouldn't have that training necessarily. It is one time. We're thinking about adding refreshers, but it was originated as one time. This is Tim's training.
Former practitioner of safety in the lowest levels of the military, I can tell you that one time is probably, given whether churn of employees or the nature of safety being top of mind, personally seems like something you don't want to do but once.
When I say once, we're talking about Tim's training, which is a specific training, but other than that, we do enormous amount of training, outreach, whether it be roll calls or the toolbox training that we do, and that is on par. And we don't really see a correlation between that and the accidents that we report.
Then one last point, I'm sorry, which is then it's not a very good leading indicator of safety then, because if you're telling me that in fact it's not causal tied to employees, then it's probably not helping us understand if it's helping as a leading indicator of the accident rate, because by definition the things in the leading indicators should lead you to think that it's tied to the lagging indicators.
Good point, and we, at the end of each year, we evaluate the leading indicators that report, and if needed, we will make any changes as we go with the safety committees. But we revisit these every end of the year, and we'll do that again this year.
Okay, customer environment survey, Pat.
The customer environment survey begins on page 38, and some highlights for the third quarter are B&T striped 129,114 linear feet of roadway in the third quarter at the Queens Midtown Tunnel, Verrazano, RFK, and Bronx Whitestone bridges. B&T repaired 659 potholes in the third quarter, which is 38% more than the same period in 2015. Bridges and Tunnels swept 3,158 miles of roadway at its bridges and tunnels in the third quarter, which is 18% less than the same period in 2015. The reduction of in-house sweeping is primarily due to the tunnel roadways being cleaned by Sandy construction contractors each night before reopening, and the hard lane closure of VN upper level as part of the redecking project. 88.2% of roadway lights were operational in the third quarter, slightly below the same period in 2015. B&T cleaned 372 storm drains in the third quarter, bringing the year-to-date total to 1,594. In the third quarter, the collision rate was 8.01 as compared to 6.46 for the same period in 2015. Collisions with injuries rate was 1.07, which was down from 1.15 for the same period in 2015. Easy Pass toll lane availability remains extremely high and above goal at 99.9%. It should be noted there was a 61% drop in speeding summonses for the third quarter. It should be noted that during this period there was a regional officer safety initiative in place whereby all officers were paired up on speed enforcement and motor patrol, reducing the number of individual assignments. This concludes the customer environment survey.
Let me ask you a question, if I may. The RFK bridge is undergoing massive work at this time, particularly heading out to Queens. Would there be any advantage at all in posting signs before the people actually approach the bridge, cautioning them there is this massive work going on, and either to stay to the left or stay to the right, or just to alert them? For example, on the Henry Hudson Bridge, you have those electric signs about a mile away or half a mile away from the toll booths. Can you do something like that when you're doing these kind of major works?
Yes, and we've been at the Queens Midtown Tunnel now. We've been using them exclusively to help people on the weekends not to drive into the heavy construction.
Last night there were none, and in the course of going between the beginning of the bridge and the Randall's Island, I saw 2 accidents because people were just not aware they had to slow down.
Right. Okay.
You might give that some thought.
We'll look into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to at this time go through the handout that we put in front of you for the meeting, discussing the collision data, some analysis that we've done. We discussed last month, of course, ways we can address the recent increases we've seen in customer collisions. Jim will walk you through some of the specifics at the end, but first I just want to give you some context. On page 1, along with the day-to-day traffic management, of course, we address our customer safety collision issues through collision task force meetings. These are conducted monthly at every facility by our operations personnel. And we also have an interdepartmental team, we call it Acrobat, and that reviews collisions and trends quarterly, help guide safety improvements that we can put in place at each facility. The two areas we focus most on are identifying the collision-prone locations, making adjustments wherever we can in these specific areas, and also targeted enforcement efforts which are specifically geared at unsafe driver behaviors. Obviously, we can't train the folks who drive in our facilities, but we can try to take actions to mitigate the problems that we see. The second page shows the 15-year trend of collisions at our facilities. You can see that in the early part of this period, they were way up. They were reduced starting around 2003. The trend has been pretty good since then, but in the last couple of years, we're definitely seeing an increase, a significant increase in 2015, and there'll be an increase that is again significant in 2016 from what we're seeing. When you look at traffic, it's hard to completely correlate the increase in collisions with higher traffic, especially for the first 6 or 7 years through about 2007. Traffic, the trend was up. Collisions, the trend was down. Since 2007, there's a little bit more of a correlation, and from 2014 to 15, we did see a big increase in traffic, along with a big increase in collisions. Whether that's a one-to-one relationship, really closely correlated, it's hard to know. We will see another increase in traffic this year, we believe, if current trends continue. So it's something we need to look at. It certainly doesn't help, but I don't want to say that, because traffic is up, we can't do anything about collisions. I don't want to leave that impression. On a month-by-month basis, we talked about providing this last month. This is, instead of the 12-month rolling average, gives you the month-by-month in 2015. You can see there was a big spike starting in May. It stayed quite high relative to the earlier in the year. Collisions are generally higher in the summer than they are in the early part of the year, but these are definitely numbers that we don't want to continue to see. The only positive news really on this chart is the last couple of months we've had collisions with injuries that have stayed down. But hopefully those numbers will continue to stay low. But overall, the trend is something we obviously need to address. And I should also note that this is the collisions that we're seeing are part of kind of a national trend. We're seeing, from what we see, car accidents, vehicle accidents are going up nationwide. Maybe we're caught up in that as well. On page 4, before I turn it over to the Jim, these are among the actions that we're focused on. As we said, we try to step up enforcement. These are a lot of the law enforcement actions we take in terms of summonses that we believe have the most effect on reducing collisions. We'll be redoubling our efforts across the agency, and hopefully that will help us, another way to help us get these numbers down. So starting on page 5, Jim will walk you through some of the specific locations that are most problematic for us at each of the major facilities, and what we're trying to do to address the concerns.
So on the next 2 pages, I want to take you through our 6 major facilities and what we call an accident-prone location, which is probably the highest one on each facility. So on the RFK, onbound, what we call onbound, which would be from the Bronx coming towards Randall's Island and Manhattan and Queens, we have a merge issue because the Deegan and the Bruckner and a local entrance all merge together. So what drivers tend to do is they try and come on from the Deegan and move over to the extreme left to get into the higher speed lanes right away. So we're putting up some additional concrete barriers, and we're going to do additional enforcement there, and we're going to do some striping, and we do have a new sign that we're putting up that's in progress right now. But most of these are attributed to unsafe lane change, and they're really minor accidents, driver inattention, most of them, side swipes or rear-end accidents, but nevertheless, we're moving towards, reducing them. On the Thrugs Neck Bridge, northbound, which would be Bronx-bound, prior to the toll plaza, we have some merging issues there, and we're installing additional delineators and additional signage there also. This will be alleviated when we go to the ORT on the plazas, and these are also unsafe lane changes. Bronx Whitestone on the Queens side, the Queens approach, we have two major highways exiting there, the Cross Island and Whitestone Expressway. There are merging issues there. Again, we're doing some striping. We're going to thicken the stripes. We're going to change some signage there, and we're going to try to put up some signs to, advise motorists to keep their distance.
We've actually added I-678 decals in the pavement in 2 spots now. There's 4 more coming to give a lot earlier notice to get people in alignment before they get over by the 14th Avenue exit. And then we see this coming across the plaza. We believe that should hopefully give us some help there, getting them in alignment.
Next one is the Queens Midtown Tunnel going towards Manhattan after the toll plaza. We have a very heavy merge there. We have alternate feed signs up. We have messengers on the portals to be alert for sudden stops in the tunnel, but most of these are following too closely. And again, they're all driver inattention as we went through all the issues of striping and things that we could mitigate. Same thing in the Brooklyn Battery, coming from Manhattan towards Brooklyn. As you get into the tunnel, in the first 1/3 of the tunnel, traffic seems to slows down.
And that's actually on a curve,
On a
too.
curve,
Yeah.
and, motorists are following too closely, so we're changing some signage there. And we have a lot of construction going on in that tube right now, so there's an issue with, with keeping the motorists, at a distance. The last one is the Verrazano Bridge, upper level, going towards Brooklyn. We're very susceptible to what happens on the Belt Parkway. As traffic builds on the Belt Parkway, our exit getting onto the Belt Parkway becomes backed up almost over the entire span. So we've tried numerous signage, do not tailgate, maintain safe distance. We have lights that we light up. We have flashing signs. We put pavement markings. And this is going to be a continued enforcement effort, because the enforcement has really made a difference in this area over the past few years. Any questions, we'll be happy to entertain.
Thank you. On page 4, what comprises the majority of truck enforcement summonses?
These would be, we have a truck enforcement unit. So what they would be is mainly safety summonses or overweight, or, we do complete inspections, or people are trained to do complete, federal inspections on the trucks, and we do take them out of service and have them removed from the facility. So those, and they generate very heavy fines for these type of, enforcement efforts.
So easy pass violations are not included in this number that's reported
Separately. Yeah, that would be
That would
in
be in the
our
other
other category.
Okay. Oh, yes. And then, if I may ask another, with regards to speeding, I should probably know the answer to this question, but is there a uniform speed limit on all the crossings, well, the bridges, not related to weather construction?
Yes. The Verrazano and the Throgs Neck are 45 miles per hour, and the other crossings are 40 miles per hour.
Okay, thank you.
On the Verrazano, would there be any useful purpose served overall if where that traffic comes off the ramp and onto the belt, that there could be some form of constraint to move the cars that are coming along the belt over to the right so that you would have a short lane to get on for the cars coming in? They've done it on a number of bridges. I wonder whether it would serve a purpose here. I don't know.
We actually had a very good plan that we worked out with City DOT in years past, where one lane on the Belt Parkway is a through lane, and one lane on the Verrazano is a through lane, and then the second lane of the Belt and the second lane of ours has a merge, and we increased the distance of that merge greatly to allow for a much easier merge.
Is that going on now?
Yes, and it was very successful. It got us to the point where we are right now. It was much worse than this until we agreed on that merge.
Would there be any value in dealing with that merge to have perhaps some flashing orange lights to warn?
We do. We've gone through all the mechanical steps. We have flashing lights on the bridge. At certain times of the day, we actually pace the traffic. We send up patrol vehicles to slow down the traffic. But it comes to an abrupt stop very quickly. And it is a matter of just strict enforcement right now. We've been looking at this problem for many years, and the enforcement is the only way to try to slow people down.
What's next?
Okay, next is the Easy Pass report. It's on page 49. Our market share for September was 86.1%, up 0.9 percentage points from the year before. Every facility is over 80% again. It dipped a little bit at the RFK Bronx over the summer when there are fewer commuters and more tourists. More than 22,600 Easy Pass accounts were open in September, 46% of which were on the go. If there's no questions on the Easy Pass report, we'll move on to the financial report. Mildred?
Yes. The financial report for September begins on page 54. We're comparing results against the mid-year plan. The first item is traffic. Jim just reported that traffic results, which were higher on a year-to-year basis, is up 3.4%. Our year-to-date numbers against the mid-year forecast are also favorable. Traffic is up 0.6% through September. For toll revenues, our toll revenue through September was $1.406 billion, which is 0.4% or $5.7 million better than planned. The report on expenses, our total expenses were $350.1 million through September, which is about $14.4 million or 3.9% lower than planned. Non-labor costs were 2% less than planned, or $3.2 million, and this is due primarily to the timing of expenses. Labor costs were lower as well by about $11.2 million, or 5.5%, primarily due to payroll vacancies. And our overtime is down 6.7% against plan, and that is about $1.3 million. Our support to mass transit was $864.6 million through September, which is about $39.5 million, or 4.8% better than planned. This concludes the financial report.
Anybody? I have one question. On page 56, unredeemed tolls as a liability. I don't understand it.
Angela's going to...
Angela will...
Yes.
Those are the prepaid Easy Pass toll accounts. So anyone who opens an Easy Pass accounts and funds their account, we have a liability on our books until they use that money.
When were these tolls prepaid in some form?
Well, it's an ongoing process. As someone opens an account for, let's say, $25, they'll use it. they'll draw it down, and then when they reach a replenishment point, it'll be increased. So it's a never-ending process of tolls that are prepaid to be used on all of our facilities and throughout the Easy Pass network.
Constant churn.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Joe, Capital Program Report, Joe Keen.
Good afternoon. The report on the capital program begins on page 69. In October, there were 7 commitments made with a value of $4.7 million. Through October 31st, 68 commitments have been made in a cumulative amount of $103.1 million. This compares to a plan calling for 74 commitments and a value of $117.4 million. The most significant commitment made in October was the award of a design contract for structural steel rehabilitation and bridge painting work at the Henry Hudson Bridge. Additionally, on November 1st, 2 significant commitments were made in connection with the authority-wide implementation of open road tolling, and these were for the awards of a toll system equipment installation and integration services contract, as well as program management and support services contract in the cumulative amount of $71.1 million. Inclusive of these awards, total commitments for the year are $174.2 million. That compares to our baseline annual plan of $151.8 million. There were no project completions made in October. Through October 31, there had been 9 projects completed, totaling $93.8 million. This is out of an annual completion plan calling for cumulative value of $146.4 million in project completions. There were no task level closeouts in October, and year-to-date there have been 91 task closeouts valued at approximately $180 million. Unless there are any questions, that concludes the report.
Anybody? I have 2 questions, if I may. Is it feasible to do something that indicates when the repair work is substantially completed? For example, when do you intend or hope to substantially complete the work on the RFK going towards Queens? Nobody is saying you should pick a day, a week, or even a month, but a range, is that possible for inclusion here?
Well, yeah, we certainly could provide that information if you're...
Could we do that for the various facilities where we have ongoing work?
Okay, sure, we could do that.
And secondly, have there been any significant cost overruns in terms of the major projects on the bridges and tunnels?
In general, the cost growth on our projects is relatively, I would say, within norms for this kind of rehab work. I think we generally come in somewhere under a 5% cost growth, which is sort of how we program our work, usually with a 5% contingency included in the award amount.
That's de minimis on all construction, but nothing beyond that kind of thing, no?
I mean, there are variations, but I would say if you look at it globally, it's around that number. I could get more exact numbers if you're interested.
Okay, thanks. All right, procurements.
Good afternoon. Procurements start on page 85. There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications. There are 2 competitive procurements submitted for approval. One, a personal service contract to Gannon Fleming for tunnel inspections and designs of miscellaneous repairs if needed at the Queens Midtown and the UL Cary tunnels for a 2-year term in the negotiated amount of $2,115,341.30. The other is an award to Hogan Newman, Regal & Kenny, a certified WBE firm, to assist B&T in meeting all legal compliance obligations under the Fair Labor Standards Act in the negotiated amount of $285,800 over a 5-year period. The total amount committed for both these contracts is approximately $2,401,141.30. Unless there are any questions, these procurements are described in detail in the enclosed summary.
Any questions? Second? All in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn. Done.
gonna get together.
Thursday.